What's up, Soul Family? Coming at you with another collective reading. This one's gonna be on. If I can get into the bag. We have Camel, which is persevere and you will overcome problems. Sometimes that's just it. Sometimes you got the formula, it's just a matter of persevering until what you want comes into fruition. That being said, if you're interested in a one-on-one reading, you can do so by directly messaging me or at the link in the bio. The first reading will be $35 for up to 20 minutes, and you can ask whatever question you want, or I can simply pull cards and see what comes out. If it doesn't resonate, then I'll simply refund you and we'll go from there. So I got 3 extra cards, which is Bridge, successfully overcoming a problem, March, and then Wall with misunderstanding. So the first thing I'm thinking of is that there are a lot of misunderstandings around manifestation. I genuinely wholeheartedly feel like, because there are so many creators who, and it's true, manifestation is instant and you don't necessarily need to wait for anything. But I think what sometimes people misunderstand is sometimes there is an unfolding to get what you desire. I think if it were to be otherwise, then people would be a lot farther in their path than where they are. And I'm not saying that where they are is bad by any means. I'm not saying that they are not very advanced in manifestation or acquiring what they want. But what I will say is there is sometimes a route to get to where you want to get. Like, I haven't seen anybody who says that they're a multimillionaire and they've just kept on affirming it who has $1 million on their account yet. But by contrast, I've seen those same content creators who talk about being abundant and attracting an abundance and money and wealth who have multiple, be it either sources of income or channels or whatever else that allow money to flow into them. And even the ones that affirm the whole stuff about like, oh, I'm a multimillionaire this, I'm a multimillionaire that, they still likely many times have things that they are selling and promoting and things that they are trying to do. So I think it's really important to know that there is a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to the manifestation realm. And a lot of teachings will be heard at too much of a literal basis without there being context to be considered. Now, above all else, you can manifest a castle by thinking about it within a minute if you we're wholeheartedly in line with that reality. But I'd like to think that we're physically focused and we have these experiences that give us the stance or the standpoint that we're in for every good reason. There's meant to be a certain level of distance between like what we desire and what we want, so we can actually then have the experience of becoming a match to that. And sometimes the gap is big, sometimes it's not. But I think above all else, it's important to be very mindful not to allow yourself to feel like you have to be manifesting everything instantaneously or you're failing. And then the first card that popped out is Buttercup, and this is from the Seed and Sickle deck. Okay, so this is about, it's a cute little story. It's about like a prince who fell in love with a nymph, and he was going out of his way. He was doing everything he can to serenade her day and night, doing everything he could. And long story short, at some point, the story goes one of two ways. Either they wed, but what really happened was she ended up turning him into a buttercup simply to silence him. So this card is a call to be mindful of like where you're putting your energy, and if you need to like reassess your approach, or if you're like maybe doing too much, whereas you need to like maybe take a step back. And maybe it's simply okay to continue doing what you're doing, but to allow things to unfold in their own time versus trying to force an outcome of something. Sometimes trying to force an outcome can be what will then allow negative interactions or the maybe like great value version of a manifestation to pop in versus the full version. So I think it's important to go with the flow, do what you can from where you are, and continue to allow things to unfold from the perspective that you are. And if you are working hard and doing things, then there's nothing wrong with that. But don't feel like you are doing anything wrong because you haven't gotten the results of your hard work. It's kind of like what I'm getting. I'm going to go to Lost Fairy Tarot deck and we'll go from there. So we have the Four of Wands. So like I've said this so many times, but there have been many times like where I've literally just been celebrating, having fun, being in a good mood, and then money has found me. I've literally just been at a bar chilling, and then somebody has been willing to pay me, like quite literally, like multitudes of times what I normally charge for readings, because that's just what they were accustomed to paying. And I felt bad. I literally like, and that was like probably me blocking my own blessing in that moment. I'm like, no, 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 you're good. And I stopped them from getting stupid in hindsight, but I stopped them from giving me more money. But you never know like where money can find you, or where abundance can find you, or like where your problems will get resolved, especially if you just kind of like take a step back and just enjoy things. And I'm learning more and more, and it's very counterintuitive that many times that's when resolutions and things align for us. Like when we're actually just having fun and chilling and not forcing ourselves to kind of work super hard. It's kind of backwards, but we're seemingly backwards, but that's really just how energy flows best. Then we have the Five of Cups. So I think this is a lot of like letting go of like the past and the old way of like doing things and experiencing things and being met with like old disappointments while trying to really move forward and still keep our mind like positive. So maybe you've had the experience of trying to manifest from this stance or manifest from this perspective or trying to simply like let go of things and it simply didn't work out well. Or maybe you're keeping in mind of like all the things that didn't go right or didn't work out in the way that you wanted it to. But it's really important to keep in mind that things can shift and things are always heading towards where we want. It's just that we're not always aware of what steps it takes for us to get to that point. Then we have the King of Swords. So this has a lot to do with, I think, like making really intelligent and strategic choices, but also trusting our intuition to guide us. The sword suit is aspects of the mind, so it has just as much to do with intuition as it does having to be logic, and I think logical, and I think balancing out those two will be the biggest benefit to anybody. So, and then we have the Knight of Cups. So, when I oftentimes see the Knight of Cups and the King of Swords, I just dropped another card. Let me grab that really quick. So a lot of times we tend to sometimes like over intellectualize the things that we're feeling versus allowing ourselves to feel things and actually process them. And I think sometimes it's a journey to finding things that we I think it's a journey to finding ways to connect to ourselves in different ways, right? Both on the emotional scale of allowing ourselves to actually feel things or and instead of like over intellectualizing things, but then also with the Knight of Cups, then finding things that then make us feel that connected self or make us feel like really whole or make us feel kind of like uplifted versus kind of just doing things for the sake of doing it. Like there are so many people who I see in jobs where I can just tell they hate their lives. They hate what they're experiencing. They're not passionate about it and they're literally doing it just to get a by. And I think it's really important to keep in mind that sometimes being more fulfilled is going to lead you to maybe even more abundance in the long run, but in the immediate run, it can just be more of a saving grace than the monetary value of overexerting yourself in a place that you simply don't want to be in. And then with the Wheel of Fortune, it's like so many times we tend to sometimes like try and over intellectualize like the things that we're going through, but sometimes there's just like a certain current and there are outside influences and external things that are happening within our experience that might have pushed us to maybe experience certain things. Like I know there's some people who might have gone homeless, and there are certain spiritualists which will literally say with their chest that these homeless people chose it because of one reason or the other. And I think it's so important to note that we come into the physical realm to experience limitation. So when we're being subject to what is very many times inhumane conditions, it's not that we did anything wrong. It's not that there's anything, bad of how we conducted ourselves. Sometimes there's just a certain current and flow and motion headed towards like what we're experiencing that we were not able to kind of like circumvent. It's kind of like how Superman's not necessarily responsible for the people who he didn't save versus being able to, save what he can. Sometimes there's only so much we can do from where we are, and there's a certain motion that kind of can take over, I would say. I wouldn't necessarily say take over, but can heavily influence where certain events or where certain circumstances might have us, unfortunately. But the important thing about the Wheel of Fortune is, in that exact same breath, where there are down periods of life, where there are periods of us being, not having the best luck, there are also cycles that then bring us to the top of the wheel. And especially once you start to then master being able to kind of like, tap into like whatever abilities you have as far as manifesting and being conscious and being able to tap into your free will to the highest extent, that is when we start to then step out of the Wheel of Fortune altogether and operate outside of those confines of having to go through this cycle and that cycle. It's like once you start to awaken more and more and more, you start to kind of like break out of that wheel and out of the things that were kind of keeping us in it, so to speak. And it's not to say that we probably still won't have like our own little experiences that are up and down, but I think the more we expand, the better it tends to work out for us. And then on the Four of Swords, then we have another card that points towards rest and contemplation and reassessing. So just like with the Buttercup card, it's just another confirmation to take a step back, chill, relax, and let things unfold for you versus trying to force things. But that being said, peace and blessings, and I'll catch you guys in the next reading.